AOC has a message for Americans who already paid off their student loans. We can support things we don't directly benefit from. Wrong. Wrong-o, 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 wrong-o. You might think she is right-o, but let me explain to you why your opinion is wrong. Well, it goes like this. First of all, okay, that's just a good statement. We can support things we won't directly benefit from. I understand that. I just don't think that this particular sentence is fairly descriptive of paying off student loans, the government paying it off, or government forgiveness, or any of that stuff. Before you really freak out, I understand the sentiment, but I think it is woefully wrong for a couple reasons. I think we're looking at the wrong culprit here. I think it is insane that we are taking, especially in the US, 16 and 17-year-olds, people whose brains aren't even formed yet, and they're like, hey, do you want 6 figures in debt? And then those unformed brains are like, yeah, I feel like there's quite a bit of societal pressure and cultural pressure that I'm supposed to go to this thing called college. So I'm just going to do it because everyone's doing it. And I can't even conceptualize what $100,000 in debt is. So sure, sign me up. That seems illegal, to put a burden, a financial burden, that there's no way they can possibly understand it. There's no way. I have an issue with that. The rising cost of college in the US from 1980 till 2020, there's been over 1,000% increase in the cost of college. We already listed one problem. Why are we getting young kids to sign up for debt that there's no way they can conceptualize? The next problem is, why is it so expensive to begin with? 1,000% inflation, 1,000% in 4 decades. How is this legal? There's no way that makes sense in terms of okay, is that a good risk reward? Should you do it for the payment? As I'm about to explain, no, it doesn't make sense. Also, look at this. This is just one part of college. In the orange line here, we have textbooks. Inflation, and this is from about 1980 once again. So there's inflation. Here's how much just a part of college is. Once again, college is one of the most inflated, ridiculous things you can possibly do, engage in. And then the fair question is okay, it's inflating, but is the juice worth the squeeze? Well, I have a couple more metrics for you here. The average college graduate salary in 2022 is $55,000. Okay, well, that's the number. Well, let's see what the average debt is. The average debt is $30,000. And at first you're like, well, if you're making 55 and you're trying to pay 30, well, remember you have to pay taxes on 55. So you're probably going to lose 20 to 30%. And remember, there is interest. And this, for a lot of people, can end up becoming compound interest. I know many people who end up taking, let's just use this number, 30,000 in terms of debt. And then they end up having to pay back on top of that, just in interest, another 30. So inherently they can be doubling it up, or they could be more than 2xing it. So all of a sudden you're talking about a financial burden that is continually growing like a monstrosity that you can't get out from under, because remember, in the US, and this is something because of Sally Mae and Nixon, that it's one of the few debts that even if you declare bankruptcy, you can't get out from under. Even if you declare bankruptcy, that debt is still looming over your head. And once again, you have to talk to Sally Mae and Richard Nixon about that one. Mathematically, is very much a losing game. So if we're talking about the losing game, to me, this is not understanding the game. This is not really a reasonable solution to the said game. This is, in my opinion, putting a Band-Aid over a gunshot wound. Really what it is it's, hey, millennials, I know you're screwed with debt right now, and maybe some of the older Gen Z. Let me say something that would just help you, because I'm basically trying to buy your votes. This is not a real political solution at all. This is not actually a solution to anything that's going on. We need to fix society and culture's opinion on college. We need to look into colleges of why the prices are so incredibly inflated. But just trying to fix it at the end of saying, oh, no, let's not worry about all of that. I'll just campaign on one topic of, hey, I'm going to help you with it. Please vote for me. It's basically trying to buy votes. And then even if we circle back to this statement, we can support things we don't directly benefit from. That is too much of a simpleton's viewpoint on this. It very much is, because the taxpayers are paying for it. So if you pay taxes, I feel like you could fairly say, hang on a second, wait, is that fair for my money to go here to a system that like, okay, great, you might want to use my money this time around, but imagine that, like, give me your money because I'm going to try to battle something, but that the thing I'm trying to battle, I'm actually not going to fix it. I'm just going to come in on the very final lap and try to do some patchwork to make it like less horrific. I'm in the personal situation where I worked my ass off to pay my own student debt. Am I going to be salty that just because I worked it off and I made life decisions where I missed out on vacations, I missed out on buying that new car, I missed out on a lot because I knew I had debt over my head? Hell yeah, I'm going to be salty. And then I can only imagine there's other people in this situation where maybe growing up as a parent, you chose to forego certain things because you knew you were trying to pay for your kid's college. And then there's other people who maybe didn't make those decisions and they're like, yeah, whatever, like we'll just take out loans. And then all of a sudden it is very fair. And like, I think this is a thing that's not discussed enough because people are afraid of like, okay, like, yeah, we could support things like that. I'll say it. Why would you not be salty? Hell yeah, I would be salty. And I think there's a lot of people who would justifiably be angry about the situation, be like, whoa, I made a lot of sacrifices in my life that maybe other people didn't, and they were just always enjoying it. And then it worked out in their end. And then my final thing to wrap this one up, I understand where they're going with it, but I don't know if they actually care about it. I don't think they actually care about improving the higher education system within the US. I think they're essentially trying to buy votes. For example, why are we picking student loans? Like, why is it this one? And the answer is because it's a pretty large voting block that's going to be around voting for quite a while. Like, why not, if we're just going to forgive something and pay off that bill, why not forgive something like medical debt? I think there's a lot of ways to look into it, but the motives of it, I think, are highly suspect. And whatever, maybe you don't care about the motives. Maybe you care about like how it all settles at the end of the day. And that's fair. That's completely fair. But I also just think the way that it's being portrayed to the public, it's not really straight up. I'm just very sick and tired of the contorted view and arguments that politicians time and time again try to shove down our throat.